Well, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Uncommon Sense number 21. Craig Kamanis and Dean Holmes here with you again today. And we have a very special guest, Mr. Raymond Pecotic, who's the Managing Director of Empire Financial Group, which is a leading advice practice in Western Australia. And it's been a massive week. We've had the race that stopped the nation. We've had another interest rate rise. And now we have got our best dressed guest ever on Uncommon Sense. So welcome, Raymond. Thank you for joining us.
Well, thanks, Craig, and thanks, Dean, for having me along. Look, I'm feeling a little bit out of my depth here, given I'm not wearing a t-shirt. But more importantly, I see the two of you there with those two big microphones, and I'm feeling very inadequate over here. I feel like my sound system isn't up to scratch.
No, mate, I'm sure you're fine. You're coming through loud and clear. So
wonderful.
We're very thankful for you giving us your time on Uncommon Sense today. Mate, where I wanted to kick off with you, Raymond, is perhaps just a little bit about yourself and your business there in Western Australia.
All right. Where do we start with that? The Empire Financial Group has been operating in this setup since 2006. So in our 16th year now. The business was started back in 2006 by me. Empty filing cabinet, lots of clear space in my then paper diary, just got to work bit by bit, building the networks, building the client base. I guess over that journey, we've grown now to a staff of almost 20 people. Most of that was done organically. We did have an acquisition that we brought into the business a couple of years ago, but up until that point, the business has just been steadily growing. We're a self-licensed practice, operate under a couple of different dealer groups back in the day, and made the move about 3 years ago to our own license as well. Operating here out of East Perth. Not far from the Optus Stadium that you can see sitting there in the background. I don't know what else you'd like me to say, Craig. Is that enough as a bit of an intro?
I think that's a great intro, mate. And one of the reasons I really wanted to get you on to Uncommon Sense today is this constant conversation that's been going on where there's the industry versus the profession. And you and I have had several chats about this in the past, and we know that there is an industry and a profession, in fact. But I really love your view on the profession, but more so, I really love your view on the way your whole team and your advice business should be viewed and the roles within that advice business. And so I thought it was a really important topic to share with our listeners today. So can you run us through your view on the profession and how you see your business and the people that work for you and the way that you've structured that up?
Yeah. Your point is correct. I think that there's been a bit of a shift lately to us hurtling towards wanting everybody that's attached to financial planning or financial services to be seen as part of the profession. But I don't think that there's anything wrong with us acknowledging that there is an industry there and that the industry exists. I think what we've probably done is we've categorized the wrong people as belonging to the industry versus the profession. And we've had this discussion before, Craig, and it's something that I've raised with lots of other colleagues and peers over the years. Certainly, the advice profession as we see it today has evolved out of an industry. And if we go back to its nucleus, we talk about the life insurance industry and life insurance agents who were very much attached to the insurance industry. And I guess then with the rise of superannuation throughout the 90s and those insurance companies getting involved in running superannuation funds and corporate superannuation funds and having that ready distribution team of life insurance agents there that they piggybacked off to deliver and distribute their superannuation products. And then the evolution of financial planning coming out of that nucleus of superannuation and the rise of superannuation over the last 30 years in Australia meant that we have had an evolution from this industry. That was once upon a time that life insurance / superannuation industry. I think that they're clearly from a regulatory and from a legislative perspective, of late there's been a forced decoupling of advice from product, and therefore a decoupling of advice away from the industry and a separation of advice from industry, and therefore people who are in the business of giving advice are part of the profession, while those who are still involved in the manufacture of services, products, or anything ancillary to the delivery of that advice, whether that's fund managers, whether that's platform providers, whether that's dealer groups, and the fact that those people may be very much professionals in their own right, and professionals in the functions that they provide within those companies that they operate in. Those people form part of the financial services industry. And then we have advisors who form part of the financial planning profession. So I think there's been a forced decoupling of that, but there's certainly been a strong group of people who have been leading that charge, irrespective of regulation, irrespective of legislation. And I'd like to think that we and I had started instilling some of those aspects of that decoupling within Empire Financial Group well before there was any requirement to do so. So I guess I look at going back now post GFC. Thankfully I was only in the business for a few years, so there wasn't a big moving ship that needed to change course. It was a pretty small business, so I could afford to be quite nimble in the changes that I made. But I identified back then that there was that requirement to decouple advice from funds under management. Therefore, there was a requirement to decouple fees from funds under management and move to a more professionalised model where we were advising clients based on the services that they required, the level of service they required, the complexity of the advice that they were seeking, and charging them appropriately and according to that. So I think that was probably the first step, was decoupling advice from the industry that sat behind it, and that evolution that was the start of that evolution within our business to move towards that more professionalised model.
Great. And now talk to us about your team members, mate. Because traditionally and probably still today, we'd say you have advisors and support staff. True or false?
I hate the term. And that's a loaded question. It's a bit of a Dorothy Dixon. Thank you for that one, Craig, because we've had this discussion many times, and I don't know how much longer we've got to go on this particular episode. But if you want, you can strap yourself in, and I'll talk about this forever. I think professionalism. There's that saying that say charity starts at home. Professionalism starts in our offices. We've for too long been waiting for other people to tell us what is required for us to be considered a professional. We're waiting for regulatory bodies. We're waiting for professional bodies. We're waiting for legislators, lawmakers to tell us what steps we need to take before we can tick these boxes to become a professional. And I think there's certainly some very important parts of that process that we as professional advisors need to embark on. Certainly, education standards being number one. We can't continue to go on, and this is no disrespect to those long-standing advisors who entered this business and entered this vocation at a time when requirements were very different. We can't be judging them or the work that they've done based on today's standards, and they've certainly got a lot to give and have given over the decades. So again, this is no disrespect or looking to discredit their contribution to the evolution of this profession and also to the work that they've done for their clients. And I think that in addition to that at some point a line in the sand needed to be drawn, and that education standards were the number one step towards professionalism. But what we've done is we've introduced these steps and these hurdles into our businesses to align ourselves more closely with other professionals and the expectations of other professionals. And the ones that I look to are the ones that and if I'm going to run some comparisons here, the ones that I look to are the ones that we find most commonly in our ecosystem. And the other professionals that we work, and I'm sure most other practices would, in the same way, we work most closely with accountants and lawyers in what we do to deliver services to our clients. So I look to the way that they run their businesses. I look to the way that those professions manage their professionalism as a really good measuring stick for how we should also be presenting ourselves. Because if we're wanting to be delivering these services in tandem, and I say it is an ecosystem, we need lawyers, we need the accountants need the financial advisors, the lawyers need the accountants, and so we all need to work in tandem. Well, we need to therefore all present ourselves at that same level of professionalism. So education standards, first and foremost, I think were and therefore are a must. But what we've done is we've brought in this aspect of the professionalism that we see from other professions. But what we're still doing is we're still holding on to some of these old life insurance agent notions where the rainmaker, the person bringing in the business, is this important person, and therefore, and if you think about the old days, and I'm going to use some incredibly old school stereotypical language, but just to reinforce how old school this thinking is, you had the life insurance agent who was out there and he'd be going out and he'd be winning all of the business. And then he had the girls in the office who took care of all of the paperwork. All right. So we've had this separation between the person out there who was seeing the clients and writing the business was this really, really important person. And then we had the support staff who were just there to kind of mop things up. That is still entrenched in our thinking, I believe. But we're not talking about in that old sense about the agent or some of those older terminologies, but we talk about it in the sense of an authorised representative. So we have professional years now, and the professional years are all working towards somebody establishing themselves as an AR. So the pinnacle of your professional year is to become a provisional advisor and then to become an authorised rep. So at that point, we consider that the person who has then become the authorised rep is the professional, and everybody else is support staff. To not use a strong word, I call bull dust on that. I have a look at, so we talk about education standards. So we want, so we're encouraging people to go into university, and let's say they're going down this financial commerce sort of path, and they're choosing their majors, and we've got two people who have started university at the same time, and let's use accountants and financial planners as an example here. One embarks on an accounting major and the other embarks on a financial planning major. So they finish their degree, they finish on Friday, and both of them start work on Monday. That graduate accountant walks into that accounting firm. Now, they walk in completely green. They don't know anything about what it takes to deliver accounting services to those clients. So what do? They do all of the really basic administrative, quite mundane administrative tasks that are involved in the generation of those accounting services to that end client. However, when they walk in on day one as that graduate accountant, not knowing anything, their title is accountant. Now, if someone came to them and asked them for any sort of accounting advice, tax, audit, insolvency, I mean, all the different strains of accounting that they can go down, they'd have no clue. And people will identify, look, you're pretty young and you're pretty green, so I'm probably not going to go to you for that advice. But they're a professional from day one, and they walk in and they can say, I'm an accountant. We take an equally qualified person. We get somebody who's come out of that same commerce degree, who's spent the same amount of time at uni. We bring them in on day one, and the title that we give them is client service officer. Client service officer, administrative assistant,
Yep.
paraplanner. We give them these titles that from day one relegate them to being a second-class citizen. It's segregation.
So because we can't call them an advisor though until they're an authorized rep. So what is the title that gives them the recognition for the fact that they've just finished a degree, but doesn't put them down in terms of the administration?
Correct. Well, so look, everyone's going to come up with different titles. My thinking is, well, why can't we? If somebody's coming out with a financial planning major, why can't we call them a financial advisor in the same way that we call a graduate accountant an accountant, the way that we call a graduate lawyer a lawyer? The really strange thing about lawyers is being called a lawyer is probably the bottom of the food chain. They start off as lawyers and then they go and become associates and senior associates. We got it the other way around, right? Where we bring these guys in, and as so they start off, they might be an associate, and then they'll move on to being the advisor. So my thoughts on this is, well, why can't we say that they're a financial advisor, but we recognise that there are people at different degrees of training and evolution. Not every financial advisor needs to be licensed and authorised. In the same way, not every accountant is a registered tax agent. Not every accountant is a registered company auditor. Not every accountant is a registered liquidator. You've got someone in each one of those offices who's signing off on things, but you've certainly got accountants doing work that contributes to that. So why can't we have financial advisors who do the same? Now, while we can't do that, what I've employed in our office is a methodology of recognising the professionalism of these people that we have in our office, not relegating them to any sort of second-class citizen status. There's no para this or I look at paraplanners. I mean, goodness, what a term, paraplanner. The paraplanners, if we want to call them that, in my office are more qualified than me.
Yeah.
Right? They're not para anything. In most cases, they are the planners, right? They're the ones who are actually doing the planning. I've got guys, my paraplanners got master's degrees. We've got two guys in here with actuarial science and applied statistics degrees. These guys are the ones who are actually crawling in and doing that nuts and bolts planning, right? Now, the difference there is that they're not the ones who are then going forward and actually presenting that advice to the clients. But that's no different to the way that in an accounting firm, a partner will have the relationship potentially. The partner will be the one who might bring in the work. The partner is one who will nurture that relationship. The partner is the one who may be delivering that, together with maybe some sort of senior manager. But we'll then have all those other, from the intermediates all the way down to the graduate accountants who are still professional staff delivering that. That's the way that I see things here, is that you might have what we call, so the advisor, the AR, may be the one who can sign off on the advice and is the one who's probably winning and nurturing that relationship and presenting that advice. But there are planners that are sitting behind that person from all different stages of development who are delivering that. So while we can't call them financial advisors or financial planners, we want to give these professionals in our office the dignity of being treated as the professionals as they are. So when I say professionalism starts in the office, our para planners, we call them technical advisors. We cannot call them financial advisors. So the term that we give them is technical advisors. They are the technicians. They are the ones who are building these strategies, who are being recognised for the technical advice that they are delivering in this process. What some other practices may consider a client services manager, client services officer, we call these professionals, we call them account managers. The account managers are the ones who are nurturing and providing all of these ongoing services to our clients. But these people in their own right are professionals as well. So, like I said, it's important that we have that professionalism starting in our office.
And Raymond, are all of these people destined to be the rainmaker or the authorized representative, or do you think that they're actually comfortable in their role, that they're heading in this call it back office, but they still obviously talk to clients and do the strategy? But is that where they're comfortable? Because I think often we push all people to become advisors when actually lots of people are technically competent, but don't necessarily want to be in front of the client 100% of the time.
I think there are certainly people who would prefer not to be that person sitting in front of the client. And sometimes they only actually recognize that once they've actually been given the opportunity to do that sort of work.
Yep.
And then they recognize, okay, well, my strengths may be somewhere else. What I think is occurring, because we have this really strong and entrenched separation of what is a professional and then what is support staff, I think that there is it appears like becoming the AR has to be the holy grail in order for me to be recognized as the professional. So that becomes the end goal. I want to be the AR, because when I become that AR, that's when I'll be finally recognized as the professional that I believe that I am. So for those who want to do that, we certainly have the pathways for them to do that. And I think that's one of the important things about being part of a growing business. And I think a lot of people, when they're sitting in a business where they are potentially capped, there might be an advisor with a group of clients, and unless that client, that advisor decides to either retire or something catastrophic happens, there's a really strong glass ceiling there. So that person who's not actually seeing the clients will always be stuck in that support role and that support terminology. We want to create an environment where we are growing and where we have continued flow of new opportunities for the young talent that we're bringing in and that we're nurturing. So we want to give them that clear pathway for those who want to pursue becoming a planner. Yep. And at the same time, what we also want to do is we want to, if the industry, if the profession, if regulation is preventing people from feeling like they are the professional unless they get to that holy grail, we want to, at least in our office, create the environment where they know that they're respected for the professional that they are, even if they don't have that AR status.
It's a damn good call, Raymond. And I think all of us have a responsibility with this. And that is that it's perfectly okay to work in an advice firm and not feel like you have to shoot to be the advisor. Because you can be a professional in very other strong roles that are very, very important, as you've articulated sort of in your chat just now, right across an advice business. And that's how we get more people wanting to join advice firms and more people wanting to come into financial advice through the universities and stuff.
Yeah, there's plenty of professionals sitting in other professions that aren't necessarily, I said, that rainmaker, and are very, very competent and recognized professionals for they are. They're just not the person who's going out and winning a client or nurturing a client. That doesn't make them any less a professional. I'll say, and that's what I just think is important for us as practice owners to recognise. I think it's a direction that's important that we look at that. You know, I said I get, and it's interesting. So when you think about, from an industry perspective, we'll get BDMs all the time wanting to come in, and I want to speak to the advisors, or to or they want to speak to me, and we tell them that I am probably the least important person for you to be speaking to. I'm not the guy who's making decisions on some of these day-to-day choices. That it's the technical advisors in most cases who are faced with a situation, and they're the ones who are assessing those different choices and then are providing those recommendations together with the AR to say, what are we going to be doing here? But they're the ones who are screening and doing the initial due diligence and are putting forward their initial recommendations before the AR then signs off on that advice and is comfortable in delivering that to the to the clients. But even I said the BDMs will come, so and they kind of feel like they're a little bit disappointed if they haven't got to speak to that advisor.
Well, their KPIs, KPIs mean that they have to speak to the advisor.
Yeah, right. So you're saying, but guys, recognize that these are the important people in the practices.
So how do you recognize them in front of clients? Because that's one element, because you can elevate them internally. And we've had a question about this as well, is what things are you doing in front of your client to elevate the people that might be in the meeting with you or the people that are outside the door?
Yeah, really good question. A couple of things. I mean, even from the very beginning, if you go onto our website, for example, you'll note when we put our team on there, we talk about our advice team, and our advice team, we have our ARs and non-ARs, but all of our professional staff are all jumbled in there. There's no hierarchy. As they've joined the business, they get put on there. So you'll have a technical advisor followed by a financial advisor, followed by an account manager, followed by another financial advisor, for example. But we put them all into these. This is your advice team. Our support team is different, and I look at that, for example, our support team. And I look at our office accountant, our internal finance manager. She's a CPA, worked for the Big Fours, and she's a professional in her own right. But within our business, she's not part of the delivery of our professional services. She forms part of our practice management and practice support. So the first thing that we do is when anybody looks at our website, we elevate these people to the same advice delivery standard as AR and non-AR. When the clients are coming in and when we talk about, we have a standard presentation that we put any new prospective clients through. And we talk about what the process is, and we talk about the people who are going to be delivering different parts of the service. We have all of their photos sitting up on that presentation. So we say, right, when you start working with us, okay, number one, see these guys here, and we put their photos and their names up, and we talk about who they are, what their experience is, what their qualifications are, and what they're doing in this part of the advice process, and the fact that you're going to be dealing with these people and they're going to be delivering this part of the service for you. Then we move on to the next part of the stage, and these are then the people that you're going to be dealing with. And we give those people visibility in front of the client from day one, so that they're expecting to be dealing with them. And they're the ones, they've got free rein to pick up the phone, speak to the client, obtain all the things that they need, manage that relationship in that part of that process. Wherever possible, we want these guys sitting in on any of the client meetings. We want them to actually see how their strategies are being delivered and how they're unfolding. Admittedly, of late, we've just got time constraints, and we all know where the labour market is at the moment, and we're all incredibly busy and trying to get more from the same amount of people. So we give them the opportunity for them to manage their own time, as many meetings as they want to sit in a week. You can sit in as many meetings as you want to sit on, but we encourage it every Monday morning to sit down and say, okay, who do you want to sit in on? Which clients are appropriate, and which meetings do you want to be part of? So we're putting them front and center as part of the professional team from day one.
Yeah, brilliant. And I think this is part of, if we need to, as business owners, need to work out how essentially each AR needs to be able to look after more clients, because we're not making any more advisors and there's an increased demand for our services. So we've got to work out how we can get more people in front of the client at different points in time. And in lots of spots, you don't necessarily need to be an authorized representative to talk to a client. And I think that's an uncertain but changing part, is that you don't need to be an advisor to sign up a client to the service necessarily. Sure, a statement of advice needs to be presented by an advisor, but there's lots of jobs I think advisors do in that entire spectrum that using your words, Raymond, that our professional staff can do underneath us, to mean that the advisor's time is spent in other areas.
I would even say underneath us. I would say alongside us.
Yeah.
There's a comment that's come through from one of the listeners or watchers, and they've talked about they give their all of their staff, and I'm assuming it's when you hear it, office staff, non-AR staff, business cards. We do the same thing. Give them the card because, even though the cards are perhaps a bit of a dying business tool, it does give someone that feeling that, okay, I'm important, this is credible.
Yep.
But the other thing is that if they are out networking, and this is the other thing that we encourage all professional staff, not only encourage, it's part of their KPIs to get out there and start networking. We want them out there flying the flag for our business. So these guys are representatives of Empire. Particularly some of these younger grads coming through, they are just they're smart, they're presentable, they're personable, they're great ambassadors, great brand ambassadors for your business. Get them out there, get them speaking to people. They're again, they don't need to be the rainmaker or the one that's actually there in front of the client and generating the revenue from that client engagement perspective, to be out there and to be seen as professionals and to be seen as a representative and as an ambassador for your business. And if they want to then have that pathway towards one day being somebody who manages, and this is not just client relationships, internal relationships, because again, there's other professional aspects to what we do. You might be running a team of technical advisors. You may be running a team of account managers. You may be moving into an operations role, a compliance role, still part of the professional delivery. And you need to manage potentially a team of people. You need to manage all your other external stakeholders. So having those people skills and that ability to build networks is very important. So again, if we want these guys to develop as professionals, it's too late to get them out there doing these things once they've done their AR sets. But let's get them out there and let's get them immersed in this. Let's get them put out into the professional community as professionals, and to be seen by those others in that advice ecosystem as the professionals that they are.
Yeah, no, they're all very good points, Raymond, and we do appreciate you, I guess, sharing with our network how you've been going about it. And I think it's something that we all need to remain focused on, right through all of the roles in all of our businesses, whether you're in the industry side or whether you're in the profession side. This needs to reflect through all of the people that work for all of our businesses, because the reality is every single person has a very important function. And we know that without it, these businesses won't function. So we really do appreciate your insights, mate.
If that's ever been highlighted, it is. I think again, in this current labour environment, these people that have traditionally been seen as support staff are now more than ever being highlighted as for just how important they are.
Yeah.
Because we need them as part of that process. They are an integral part of the delivery of our professional service.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well said. Well said. Well, Dean, that might be a wrap for today. But I know in some episodes coming up, we're going to talk to some other business owners about how they attract and retain graduates into their business as well, which will continue along this theme. So we're looking forward to having those chats. But Raymond, thank you for joining us on Uncommon Sense number 21. We've appreciated your insights a hell of a lot.
Wonderful. Thanks, Craig.
Thanks so much, Raymond. Cheers.
Okay. See you, everyone. Bye.